Hello, Mark Red Larson here for the Handyman for Your Life podcast, episode 32. Well, I am really excited about today's guest. Actually, she's uh, Crystal Iris Jacobo?
Jacobo, however
Jacobo.
you say it, it's
Okay.
fine.
She actually is the one, she's my coach, great friend, and she's the one that got me started with this podcast a few months back. And I mean, it just doesn't seem like we should be up to 32 episodes already. So,
Yeah,
but welcome, Crystal.
it's truly an honor to be here, and I'm excited to share, talk, have all the conversations with you, and hopefully we say something that's going to serve your audience in the best way possible.
Yes. So, Crystal, how did we meet? How did we get to know each other?
What I love about how we met is that we met at an event. I
Mm-hmm.
always like I always praise events, and I always tell people, like, if you are wanting to do anything in life, get into a room with other people because you never know
Yes,
who you're going to meet. I also
exactly.
I also say that when you determine to change seasons of your life, the moment you move, the universe responds. And I think
I,
for you had made that decision very clear on your end,
yep.
and you went to the event, I went to the event, and here's the funny thing, I wasn't even supposed to be at the event where I met you. My husband was supposed to be there.
I
And
did not know that. Okay.
yeah,
That even
I
makes
wasn't
this even better.
yeah,
So,
I wasn't supposed to be there, so he volunteered because he's very quiet, and I'm usually like really outgoing. He's on the quiet side, and so
uh-huh.
he volunteered by himself, and he was like, "I'm gonna volunteer by myself just so I can kind of start talking to people." I was like, "Okay, go for it. I'm gonna hang out in the pool. I'm gonna be doing my own thing." I ended up running into a friend who was like, "Hey, can you come down and help us too?" I was like, "Yeah, sure." So that's how I ended up being, but I was never supposed to be there. And then
Wow.
I ended up meeting you when I was putting all the stuff on the boxes. I ended up talking to you
Yeah.
and we connected, but I was never supposed to be there.
Wow. That is, I love that. That's so awesome. I did not know that until right
Hmm.
now. So that
Yeah.
even makes it more special. So,
Yeah.
okay. So, tell us about a little about you, Crystal. So you live in California, but what is your
Yes.
background?
So my background, I'm going to take it like a little bit back, but I am
Okay.
actually, I was a school teacher. I went to school for teaching. I have my master's, my degree in like building curriculum and education. I was a teacher for 5 years. I did
Okay.
seventh grade and then I did fourth grade.
Oh,
And
wow. Cool.
as much as I loved it, I don't know how to describe this feeling, but I knew there was something else that I was meant to do, and I didn't know the
Mm-hmm.
what. That's where it gets really weird because I didn't know the what, but I just knew that my heart craved something else. I ended up going
I know that feeling.
through this big season of, I don't want to say it was depression, but it was very much feeling like I was stuck in a life that wasn't mine. And that's the best way that I can describe it, because I always tell people it was almost like I was watching myself live a life, but I felt so disconnected from life. And
Mm-hmm.
that went on for maybe
Right.
3 years after I had already been a teacher. We Everything in my life felt really, really stable. But yeah, I felt a little bit like I was being ungrateful. I came from a very, very poor background. My parents, like,
Okay.
we had a very rough upbringing. Um, so now being a 24-year-old at this point, having a career, having a home, having like my dream car, having like everything I ever wanted at that point, I felt like I was being ungrateful. I was like, there has to be
Hmm.
something wrong with me because
Interesting.
I'm ungrateful. Why can't I just be happy?
Mm-hmm.
And then moving into this, I went into my own spiritual journey, my own discovery. I quit teaching, I left. I attended retreats, I attended all the events, and I started realizing that
Mm-hmm.
sometimes we take paths that are meant to get us to our next season. Some paths are not meant to be forever. And I think that's what I was trying to make
Yep.
teaching my forever thing. So after that, I ended up becoming a coach. Now I coach everybody who's trying to find their more, and I help them connect to their more. I help them connect to their
Yes.
next seasons. So now I get to do this, and I get to work with some amazing human beings, and even their stories, how their stories impact me. It's been such a
Mm-hmm.
journey.
That is
Hmm.
so cool. So okay. You taught. I mean, what did you teach? You
So
said
I
you
did,
taught.
yeah. So I did seventh grade, and I taught like grammar, English, ELA,
Oh,
all that
okay.
stuff. I did seventh grade, and then after that, I moved down to fourth grade. So in fourth
Okay.
grade, it was I think fourth grade's a curriculum, a little bit of everything. Where that's the
True.
season where we start like multiplications. We
Mm-hmm.
barely touch division. We're doing
I can.
grammar,
Yeah.
like the
Oh,
beginning
yes.
stuff. Yeah.
Okay, that's cool. So,
Hmm.
okay, so you did that. You were searching, and I think a lot of people are. I think a lot of people live their life that way, searching, and a lot of people don't find that path. I mean, I hope people eventually do find their path, but I think a lot of them don't. So, if
Hmm.
somebody was searching to, I mean, you said you searched. What
Hmm.
finally was the final step that got you to today? Do
So
you think?
I was trying everything. I was attending real estate events. I was attending coaching events. I was attending literally anywhere I could be in the room because I didn't know what my next chapter was going to look like. I had no idea. All I knew is I was a teacher. And I think I was so tied to that
Mm-hmm.
identity my whole life that while I'm a teacher, I had also worked really, really hard to be a teacher. I had student loans to be a
Sure.
teacher. I had like
Oh yeah.
my exams for teaching. A lot of the teachers, like, they passed them on the first try. I passed them like three. I took some two times, three times. Like, I also don't focus a lot when I'm studying, so it made it
Okay.
so much more harder for me to pass these dang tests that California gave us.
Uh-huh.
So it was like I had put in so much work for this thing, so walking away from teaching was like I felt like I was quitting on myself. And I
I
knew
can
the
understand
only way
that.
to get out of that feeling was to be in these rooms with like-minded people, people that were also scared, people that were also doing things. So I ended up attending events of all sorts of things. So I think if you're in a season of searching, just get in the room with people. Get in
Yeah,
the room with like-minded
I
people, with
agree.
any room that you can, get in the room, because the conversations are different, the thoughts are different, and it changes different perspectives. And it might take one thing that somebody says that's going to spark the next idea or the next season of where you're meant to be. So for me, it ended up being I was at a real estate event. I was at a real estate
Okay.
event,
Okay.
and I went into that event and I knew zero about real estate.
That would be
But
me.
yeah, but they were talking and talking, and I met somebody else there. That somebody else was like, "Yeah, I'm a coach," and we kind of exchanged information. I followed them on social media. I started seeing that coaching was a lot like teaching.
Okay.
It was a lot
True.
of like guiding, supporting. I was like, oh,
Right.
I think I could do this. And I started like doing something very little. I started putting together a program with the curriculum. I used to build school curriculum. Now I'm just building curriculum for courses and business and
Right.
life.
Mm-hmm.
And I put my very first program and it sold out. And
Which
I
is
think my
awesome.
yeah. And I kind of from there just started saying, huh, maybe I'm meant to actually teach, just not teach in the school system. And
Okay.
that's kind of how I came about this.
Okay. Okay. So you're to that point. Had you met your husband by this time, or your future husband, or
Yeah.
where did you
So
meet him?
okay, so me and my husband, we were actually high school sweethearts. So we met in high school
Cool.
during the season of me wondering what was wrong with my life, why I wasn't happy, why I felt like there was something wrong with me. I think I got so detached from my own life that we were actually engaged and I ended up breaking up the relationship. I was like, I don't think I'm
Okay.
serving you.
Uh huh.
I think I'm not I can't make myself happy, so I don't know how I can make you happy. And I think we're just taking on the burden of we're engaged. We think this is the way it should be. I don't want to disappoint my parents. I don't want you to disappoint. And I think we were both unplugged from the relationship at this point. So I ended up, at least speaking from my perspective, I called off our relationship and I left.
Wow.
It was the hardest decision I've ever done because I
I
remember
bet.
crying. I remember feeling like I had failed myself. Now I had failed another human being. It was just a really, really hard season. But I do think it was necessary for me to get to this point because as the years went by, because 2 years later, I actually came across him again,
Hmm. So
and
cool.
we started becoming friends. We started kind of sharing what we both were up to, and then we ended up getting engaged a second time, and I actually did marry him. It just wasn't
Awesome.
at the time that we were planning to. It was years later. But yeah,
Just
we
it wasn't the
yeah
right time the first time then. So I think
no
that is so cool. So
yeah.
okay, and you guys live on a farm. Actually, we were just talking before we started that I'm on a
Hmm.
farm, and actually they're not harvesting right this moment. So, but you have a farm. I know the other day they were harvesting where you and your husband
Yeah.
live. So what do you guys grow?
So it's this is more like my husband's side of the family. They grow
Okay.
pistachios. So it kind of started with his uncles, and then his uncles kind of got his dad involved, and then his dad got him involved. And it just became like a thing that they do. But yeah, they do pistachios, and they harvest around August, like mid-August, all the way to like October.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. Okay. Well, before we got started here, just kind of jumping ahead. One of the things you're
Mhm.
doing coming up is you have a retreat coming up. So, what got you started on the path of doing like a retreat or an event like that?
So being in the person, being growing up with how I grew up, like I mentioned earlier, we grew up very, very poor. It was a very rough for me and my siblings. I remember at a very, very young age, I always told myself, like, I don't want to live like this. I don't want to live like this.
Mm-hmm.
And I was maybe like 8 years old, Mark, when I was having these thoughts of,
Oh wow. Wow.
I knew I didn't want this life for me. And I realized that because I grew up that way as a little kid, I became very hustle mentality. Like
Okay.
do. I had like four jobs at when I was like 19. I had like four jobs. I was getting like 2 hours of sleep. I was going to school. I was working four part-time jobs. I was doing anything
Wow.
and everything that I could to not be in the situation that I grew up in. And my dream was like
Can
to buy a
understand that.
house. I wanted to buy a BMW back at the time because that was like my dream car when I was like 19.
Sure.
I was doing everything. I wanted to be the youngest teacher to graduate. Like I wanted to do everything fast and I wanted it now. So I got very, very sucked into the culture of hustle and grind, hustle and grind. And with that being said, I ended up realizing that I was being validated by my achievements and what I did in life rather than who I was. In the season
Okay.
of in the season of trying to do everything and make my parents proud, do work proud, I kind of lost my own identity, which kind of goes back to when I said, hey, at 25, I left my relationship, I walked away from everything, I quit teaching. I Everything accumulated to that feeling where I completely detached from my own identity and I didn't even realize it because I was so praised. And here's where I think is so harsh about the hustle and grind culture is that we are praised for not sleeping. We are praised
Yeah.
for like burning out. You are praised for
Mm-hmm.
doing,
Very
doing,
much.
doing, doing. You're praised for not putting your happiness first, and you're praised for
Yep.
putting work first. And I didn't realize at the time, but I was always praised. Crystal's such a hard worker. Crystal, she never gives up. Crystal's always doing something. And in that
Mm-hmm.
season, I completely lost myself.
Mm-hmm.
So I think
Yes.
with that, when I said I went to through my soul searching journey, it wasn't just a searching journey of what came next for me, it was an identity searching journey too. I think my soul wasn't happy. I wouldn't say I was suicidal, but my thoughts were very, very dark. My thoughts were almost like, I wish life could end now because then I would go as a hero
Okay.
because I worked so hard, I never gave up, versus if I were to commit suicide, they're going to think I chickened out, they're going to think I left. But I always had
Mm-hmm.
these weird thoughts in my head of, I'm not happy, and I wasn't doing anything about it. So when I went on this soul searching journey, I attended a retreat. I attended trauma workshops. I attended, like I said, I attended everything.
I did. Yeah.
And
Okay. I
I
can
did
understand that.
everything. And I went through my own transformation. And I remember going to a retreat in Mexico, and it was a like, no, it was like 5-day retreat.
Oh
And
wow.
I cried the most I've ever cried. I forgave myself for things that I didn't even know I was holding. I forgave people from my past. I realized that also I had hurt people in my past that I was never trying to hurt.
Mm-hmm.
I just realized that because of the culture and because of everything, how I grew up, I became this almost toxic version of myself. And I
Okay.
didn't even know I
Interesting.
was that person.
Uh-huh.
So
Okay.
through the soul searching, I realized that I had my own layers of shedding I had to do um, before I got to the destination that I got. So I did a lot of that, and that part of my journey changed my entire life. That
Cool.
layers
Okay.
and the
Very cool.
retreat. And moving
Uh-huh.
forward, I knew it was something that I wanted to bring into our community. I know it's like, I think when we look at self development, so many people think of it as like, I'm not broken, so I'm not going to do it. And I like to think
Yep.
of it as like, you don't have to wait till you're broken to do self development. You can do it at
Amen.
any point in your life and go from good
Yes.
to great, go from great to
Awesome.
amazing. Like, you don't have to wait till
Yes.
you're broken. And that's why the retreat exists. The retreat is in whatever season of your life you're in. If you just want to connect even deeper to yourself, attend the retreat and go from good to great, go from great to amazing. Like, you don't have to wait till you're broken, unfortunately, like it happened to me.
Yeah, and I think that is very prevalent in our society that, if you, well, you're looked at almost down on because it's like, there's nothing wrong with you. What are you doing this for? And it's
Mm-hmm.
just like, but I want to improve. I want to get better so I can help more people, all this. So, okay, I'm going to ask you this question. What's the difference between living and existing in your mind?
I think existing, everyone's doing it.
Okay.
I think every single person in this world is existing. I think living is where you wake up every day excited for what you're doing. You wake up with this like fire in your belly to know that it is so beautiful to live this day, and feeling so free and peaceful at the same time. And but everybody can
Yep.
exist. Everybody's
Yep.
existing.
Yep. I agree. That would be that's the way I would have said it too. So,
Hmm.
I already kind of know this, but what gets you excited about life? I think I already kind of know part of this.
You know what? I think the unknown is what gets me excited.
Really? Okay. That's
Like I
cool.
like I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, but also because I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, there's so much possibility in tomorrow.
True.
Because I
I hear
don't know
you.
what's going to happen next year, like there's so much possibility in next year. And I think what gets me really, and it's funny because I had anxiety for 7 years straight. Like, not knowing what came tomorrow was like, it was my worst nightmare, and I would cry
Right.
myself to
There's,
sleep.
oh,
it was
wow.
it was bad. I would get anxiety every night for 7 years straight. I it was a constant battle, so the unknown was really scary. But I think now in my life, because I'm so connected, and I don't think I'll ever be done fully working on myself. I think it's something that I'll
I,
do forever.
hmm I think, yeah, I think anybody who gets into that, it kind of becomes, I don't know, addictive. But once you kind of, it's like I want to just get better and get better. And
Yeah,
I hear you. So,
yeah.
okay. So, what's one thing you're most grateful for?
I think I'm most grateful for just peace. I think
Okay.
for so long, I was an overthinker. I used to worry. There was so many things I was caught up in life with, and now I sit here in the morning sometimes, and I'll sit in their house in complete silence, and I'm just so grateful for like the peace that I feel in my heart.
Hmm.
And I think when you have that peace, and until you've experienced it, it's hard to describe it.
I would agree. No, I would
Yeah.
definitely agree. So, no, I'm very similar in that. That's just well, I always tell her the silence has a lot of answers too, and it's so peaceful and running water and all that stuff. So
Yeah.
okay, so going forward, what do you see you do to yourself? What do you see your business, what you're doing right now, going forward in the next 5, 10 years?
So I know me and my husband are in talking about like officially starting a family. So that's
Okay,
like
very nice.
where that's where my heart is focusing on right now. As far as business wise, as much as I love this work, I had this realization maybe last year where I was like, there's only one crystal in this world. And
Mm-hmm.
if something were to ever happen to me, this mission that I believe in, this work ends with me until there's other people. Like, I have amazing private clients that I serve, but how can I teach everybody that I learned in the retreats, the trauma work, the healing? How can I teach other people? So we have a certification program now. We have a certification program now where
Awesome.
anybody can come into this world. They can apply through the certification program. They get selected. They go through the cohort. It's 6 months of
Wow.
being in 6 months of really being in the curriculum and learning trauma work, learning breath work, the modalities to heal, the modalities to self-awareness. You go through this curriculum, you practice hours, you graduate at the end with a certification program, and now you can go and help other human beings who are in this world as well. And I always think like there's human beings that are never ever going to meet me, but they're going to meet
Mm-hmm.
somebody that I worked with, and that
Right.
somebody that they worked with. And now the legacy of what I want to do in this world just keeps living on, whether I'm here or whether I'm not. So that is the biggest
Mm-hmm.
thing. Our I think in the next 5 years, our biggest mission is just going through the certification program, making sure that that gets like that continues to grow, that we continue to provide all the tools that we have for these upcoming coaches, the people that want to help the world, because I think when you know you're meant to help the world, you have that feeling in your heart and you just know.
You do. You do. I
You
agree.
just know.
Yep.
You just know, but sometimes we don't have the tools, or we're like, we say, okay, I want to help, but how? How do I
Yeah.
do this? How do I move? And I think if you want to coach, going through an academy, getting certified, getting tools for the how, then life becomes so much more easier because now you have something to help the world with.
Yes, I agree. So,
Yeah.
okay, going back, for our in our audience, what is breath work exactly?
Okay, so breath work is a way to get into your body and really connect with yourself. I think
Okay.
we are in a society right now where we live day by day and we're always go, 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 whether we try or
Mm-hmm.
not to be, whether we realize or we don't. There's always something to do. Because even if you were to call your best friend right now and say, hey, let's hang out, well, let me check, let me figure out what I have to do, let me do this. There's 101 things that we have to get done every day that
Yes.
we don't slow down to even acknowledge our own breath. Breath work is an ancient modality. It's actually been around for hundreds and hundreds of years.
Really? Okay.
It's been around forever. You can just Google
Wow.
breath work and it'll give you all these modalities, but it's actually been used by so many people in Bali, in India, like people who've gone to temples, and they all they do is fast and use their breath. That's it for like 14 days, no food, just water and breath.
Wow.
It is a
That's
huge tool.
amazing.
Yeah, it is a huge tool. But what they do with their breath is different breath patterns can cause different reactions.
Okay.
So
Interesting.
an emotion typically lasts in your mind around 78 seconds,
Okay.
typically 78 seconds. Um, so if you can go into your breath and simply breathe, like big inhale, big exhale through your mouth, if you can do that for 78 seconds, you can shift your brain from having like a temper tantrum, from being
Okay.
having like just 78 seconds of breathing. The other thing with breath is that if you are more capable of breathing longer breaths, you provide more oxygen to your actual brain, and it causes your brain to process information differently.
Wow.
So it's not just what I love about breathwork, it's that it's not just woo woo stuff that everybody says, oh, this, so you're going to feel. There's actual science behind that shows you different modalities, different ways to breathe. Even because if you were to think about it as simple as like when you get excited, what changes? Your breath. When you
Right.
get
Right.
scared, what changes? Your breath.
Oh yeah.
Like every single emotion, when you're crying, your breath changes. You're like, like you're doing those crying breaths. Like
Right. Right.
everything focuses on the breath. The breath now, the way that I've infused it in the certification program is that when you can know, when you can go into your traumas and when you can tap into your breath, you get to almost go through the experience, detach from the old story, and create a new one. And in a
That is so
way, in
awesome.
your breath, you get to forgive people that perhaps you've never were able to sit down and forgive them in the past. You get to
That's
detach from things, and it
cool.
I've been doing that through the breath. My first encounter with the breath was I was at a real estate event in Anaheim. My
Okay.
my fiance at the time, well, he wasn't my fiance, but we were dating again, and he wanted to go to this real estate event because a basketball player was going to speak.
Okay.
And he's like, I want to go see Kobe Bryant. He's like, he's going to speak. He's going to speak. I was like, okay, that's fine. So we went, we got tickets just to see him speak. Um,
Okay.
right, right before he spoke, he's like, well, we should probably go before he speaks to get good seats. And then
Sure.
after that, we'll take off to Disneyland. That was the game plan. So
Mm.
before
Cool.
him gets on stage, this guy, and he starts facilitating breath. He's like, everybody close your eyes and picture this light in between your eye, in between your eyebrows. And I'm doing it.
Uh-huh.
And keep in mind, this is somebody who has anxiety forever. I'm
Okay.
doing it. And I get this little feeling of like, and I stand up. I was like, nope, I'm not doing this. No, I
Oh
don't want to
wow.
go through this. I was just so scared to feel what I was feeling. So I get
Mm.
up and I look around, and these are like strong men in suits. Like
Uh-huh.
80% are men, 20% are women. Their eyes, they have tears coming down their eyes, Mark.
Oh wow.
I turned to my boyfriend at that time and he has tears coming down his eyes. Nobody said anything. all we've been doing is breathing. And in that
That's
moment, I
so
felt
awesome.
the most connected I had felt to him, because was post breakup, post separation, the
Right.
most connected I felt to him, and we didn't even say a word.
Huh. That is
So I,
so. Wow.
so I sat back down and I went through the experience, and I started crying halfway through the experience. Nobody told me anything. I didn't share a single word, and yet I felt so free.
That is that is really awesome. That is so cool. Wow.
Yeah. And when it ends, Mark, like, we've all been breathing as a collective, all probably 1,500 of us.
Uh huh.
And they ask us, hug somebody near you. So I turn and I hug this random stranger.
Okay.
The hug that I got from this random stranger, it was like the most purest hug I've ever received.
I
Full of
bet.
love, I felt so seen. I turned and I hugged another stranger, and it became like everyone hugging everyone. And we felt so
Oh,
free, so
I love
connected,
that.
from a complete random guy on stage having us breathe. The teacher in me was like, what
Wow.
happened? How can I do this? Like,
Yeah. Right.
I needed answers. And sure enough,
Oh,
when I went through my journey,
that's
I looked up breathwork teachers, breathwork certifications. I got certified several different times through several different techniques. I just needed to know. I needed an explanation.
I can understand that with
Yeah,
that amazing experience.
yeah,
Wow, I would love that. That is so cool. I mean,
yeah.
that is where you're talk about making a difference in people's lives. I mean, uh, so what makes a person beautiful in your opinion?
I think it's their soul.
Your
I think
soul?
it's
I
I
agree.
think it's your soul. I think it's who they are, how they carry themselves. And I don't even think like how they carry themselves, like the modalities of life, because I think it's so easy for people to fake being a good human being.
True. I agree. I
But
definitely
I
do.
think,
So,
yeah, what makes them beautiful is just their soul, like internally who they are.
okay. And on soul, we need to talk about your podcast that you have, how
Hmm.
you got started and how many episodes. I mean, so what got you started doing a podcast?
Yeah, so when I was going through this weird journey, I started
Mm-hmm.
attending events, I started attending a breath work. Like, things were happening to me in my life where, again, it goes back because I was putting myself in rooms. So I
Okay.
always
Yep.
tell people,
Yep.
if there's an opportunity, put yourself in a room. Like, you don't know
Yes.
who you're gonna meet. You don't know what you're gonna find.
Exactly.
Go to the room.
Yep.
And at these rooms, I was hearing like advice or speeches. I don't even know what you want to call it at that time, because I wasn't really open to, I didn't even know I was healing. I just knew I was trying to find a new career.
Uh-huh.
Um, and things started happening, like ideas started shifting, and I realized, what if somebody in this world feels like I feel?
Mm-hmm.
And I
Yep.
kind of on it. I was really big on Snapchat back then because I didn't have Instagram. Snapchat was like a thing for just my friends.
Okay.
Like,
Right.
I wasn't big on social media, just my friends. And I said, hey, if I were to do a podcast, just sharing kind of the journey that I'm in, do you guys think that would help you? One person said yes.
Okay.
I was like, should I do this? Should I not? Then I was at another event and I heard somebody say, whether you have one person listening or 30 people listening, those are people that have been put in your life because
Yes.
they need to see you flourish so that they know they can bloom too.
Yes.
And that was my reminder from another person said it. It wasn't even towards me. She just said it to somebody else.
Uh-huh.
And I went home and I started the podcast.
Okay. So awesome. That's how you got started there.
I was like,
So,
somebody else needs to hear this. So I was very honest at episode 1. I was like, hey, I don't know what we're doing. We're going to figure it out together. And I'm just going to share what I'm going through, my ahas, anything. And it started the podcast kind of as a ride of like, if I can do this, you can too. And like, let's go on this journey together.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. And I know you remind me on my podcast too that I need to remember that too. So,
Yeah.
so what episode are you up to? You've done it for quite a while now, haven't you? Your podcast?
Yeah. Yeah. So we did year 1. Then year 2, I kind of took a break because I didn't know where I was going. I just kind of knew I was sharing. I also got really busy with life. And now at this point, I was taking private clients. And it was just, I think I was so into this work that I didn't have time for anything anymore. Year 2 was
I
like
can
kind of
understand
figuring
that.
out systems and making sure that I didn't get burnt out by what I loved. So we took a break, and then year
Mm-hmm.
three we started again, and we brought it back.
Okay.
It's evolved multiple times. It's gone through like four different name
I can
changes.
understand that.
Yeah, it's evolved as I'm
Uh-huh.
growing and as I'm changing. But we're in episode 89, I believe now. And
Okay.
yeah, now it's called
And
Soul Radio. What was
okay,
that,
I was
Mark?
just going to ask you that. So awesome. So
Yeah,
that was what I was going to ask you too. So
yeah,
okay.
Soul
So
Radio podcast.
um. So okay. So what activity makes you lose track of time? What is something, work wise, not work wise? I mean, do you have hobbies, or what makes you lose track of time? Something you really enjoy.
That's interesting because I think now that because of this lifestyle, I never really keep track of time on what things I'm doing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I think something really, really special in my life is my dog. When I got my dog, I got her in 2017 because, again, I was feeling like I wasn't worthy to be in this world. And I didn't
Okay.
even know that's what I was feeling. That's how crazy
Okay.
it is. I didn't
Uh-huh.
know. I just knew that I kind of felt like I just needed to take care of something or someone. I had just gone
Okay.
through our breakup, mine and my husband's breakup, and I got my dog in hopes of, well, I kind of knew I wanted a dog. I didn't want to get a dog because I also was teaching. I didn't want the responsibility.
Sure. I can understand that.
But my dad calls me and he goes, "Hey, I want you to come to the house." I was like, "Okay." So he brings this little German Shepherd dog because I guess she had gotten into a cactus. She ate the cactus.
Oh.
The cactus was stuck in her throat. So my dad gave
Oh,
her
the
my
pain.
dad was, yeah, my dad was like, "I just gave her olive oil and she threw up and she threw up the cactus." And my dad's like, "I didn't know what to do with her, but if I left her there, she was gonna die." So my dad brings this little dog and I'm like, "Dad,
Mm-hmm.
I can't take her. I really can't." I go to the backyard and this little dog, like, she just ran to me, like, and
Uh-huh.
like try to like headbutt me. And I
Uh-huh.
have a thing for like little attitude, like for whether it's little kids with attitude or little doggies. And
Uh-huh.
she just kept going side to side to side, and like she kept headbutting me, and I was like, "Get
Ha.
away from me!" So I kept like not
Uh-huh.
kicking her, but like pushing her to the side. And I was sitting there, and she with her little paw kept like hitting my leg, and I was like, "Oh my gosh!" And I was like, "I think I'm meant to take her." So I brought her home on a
Yep.
Friday, I think. And ever since then, she kind of, anytime I felt sad, she's been there. The days where I've fallen, she's been there. There are times
Yeah.
where I've been crying on my knees, wondering, like, what am I even doing with life? She was there. And
I
I
understand
think for
that.
me, just hanging out with my dog has been a big thing of, I can sit there, I can fall asleep with her on the ground, I can go play with her, and I have no track
Yep.
of what time it is.
No, and I agree, and
Yeah.
that's so cool. I think she was definitely meant to be your dog. Yes, it's amazing how the universe has ideas. So,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah. I was not looking
so
for a dog. I was not looking for breath work. I was not looking for half of the stuff that I've ended up with. And it just found
it's it's
me.
just it is interesting how things find you. It's just what the universe has in mind. So, okay, I got
Yeah.
another question for you. If we
Mhm.
learn from our mistakes, why are we in general afraid to make mistakes? Then, what do you think?
I think as a society, we've learned that, like, when we fail, it's a bad thing. And I think we've learned this since we were little kids because I tie it back to school. And I even tie it back to my teaching days. I think when I was in fifth grade, I took a multiplication test, and I remember this being
Mm-hmm.
like I remember this being a core memory. But in fourth grade, I took a multiplication test, and I remember we were all taking the test, and the teacher pulls out the things, and he starts calling out loud how many you have missed. So Crystal 7,
Oh,
Melissa 3, and
right,
they just
right.
start, and it's like normal.
Okay.
The people that missed none, they get praised, they get up, they get like
Right.
a little
Yep.
eraser, like, "Oh my gosh, these people are doing so good." And I think right there and then, as little kids in school, we learn to associate mistakes with being bad. You don't want to miss problems on the math test. You
I
don't want to miss
agree.
problems. And I think as we go into adulthood, we start realizing mistakes are bad. Mistakes are bad, and we don't want to make them. We want to strive for one shot, one and done. But we realize that
Yep.
in life, there's no life manual. There's no book that tells me this is how Crystal's life's going to be. And even if I did do it, which I did everything I had to
Mm-hmm.
do. I went to college, I did everything. I still wasn't
Uh-huh.
happy.
Me too.
And I
Yep.
think when you realize, like, the mistakes allow you to figure out what comes next. That's
I I
what
very
changed
much agree.
everything. Like all the mistakes that I've made, I had to make them to get to here. I had to. I couldn't be the
Yep.
person that I am standing here if I hadn't made the mistakes that I've made. So I think the easier you learn to accept, and I don't even think accept is the word, because I think it's just realizing that the more mistakes that I make, the closer I'm getting to the purpose where I'm meant to be.
Yeah. I agree. I very much have found that myself too. So okay, that's cool, and I like the way that was phrased. So, is there anything doing what you do that you struggle with on a day in and day out thing? Is there something that you wish you did better, or um, I don't know if that really is a clear question or not. Something that
You kind of skipped a little bit, so I didn't hear the question.
oh, okay. Is there something day in and day out that you struggle with that you wish you knew how to do better, or something you just struggled with and it just frustrates you that
Um, I think I think imposter syndrome is a big one.
yeah, I can
I
understand
think
that one.
we never fully detach from the imposter syndrome. I think in all ages of our life, even being a mom, like I shared with you guys right now that I want to be a mom, and our next season in our personal life, but it still terrifies me. What if I'm not good enough? What if I mess up this little kid's life? What if all these things?
Yeah,
And I think that's just parenthood. What if you were to get a new job? Like when I became a teacher, my biggest fear was like, what if I can't teach? What if like I fail these little kids? When I started being a podcaster, well, what if my message isn't good enough? I think imposter syndrome is a part of every season of our lives, and I don't think it ever
I
goes
agree.
away.
No,
And
I don't think it
and,
does either.
and I think now, I guess I don't struggle with it, but I guess it's part of my everyday life, and I've realized in all seasons of my life, it's gonna be here, and I get to really, really say, okay, Crystal, with fear and all, we still get to do it.
That's a great way to say that.
Like I
Yes.
get to hold hands with imposter syndrome and say, all right, like ready or not, like here we go. Um, because
That's
we're
a great
doing
way to
it.
put it.
But it's
So,
not,
oh,
yeah. It's just
go
something that
ahead.
keeps showing up. I think in all areas of our life, I think I've learned that it's just always going to be a part of everything we do.
Okay. And for people that might not know what imposter syndrome is, how would you describe imposter syndrome?
Yeah, so imposter syndrome is the little annoying little voice that tells you we're not ready, or let's wait a little longer, or what if this doesn't work out? All the self-doubt, all the ways that like you stop yourself from doing, whether it's working out, whether it's a lot of the times even working out, you're like, oh well, we're not fully ready. Let's commit next week.
Mm-hmm.
We can start next month. Like all the little voice, like that's your imposter syndrome trying to stop you from getting to where you are meant to go, or whether you want to start the podcast or start the business or
Right.
write the book, whatever you're doing, there's always little voices that those little voices are your imposter syndrome.
Yep. And I agree. I think we all deal with that at one time or another, or daily, or hourly, depending on the
Yeah.
day, sometimes
Yeah.
too. So okay. So right now, kind of shifting gears here.
Okay.
You're helping me with an event coming up next month
Mm-hmm.
here in Nebraska. So talk about what you're helping me with. Talk a little bit about that. What your part is going to be, and what you're going to do, and kind of what impact, which is the name of the event. It's October 15th. You'll be speaking, but
Mm-hmm.
kind of talk a little bit about that, if you would.
Yeah. So I think okay, so for my part, how I'm helping you is like I host an annual event in this space. I've done events, we do retreats, we've done multiple things now. So I'm just guiding you the best way that I can to get ready for that event. So that's my job as like on the behind the scenes role. On the actual stage of what I'm going to be talking about is I'm going to be talking about connecting to your soul. A lot of the times we are
Yes.
so detached from our soul. We are so detached from our own abilities, our own power, our own belief.
Yep.
And I'm going to be walking through a workshop of how to connect back to your power, your belief, your confidence. I always like to say this. So many of us, we don't have confidence, whether it's like, well, who's going to listen to my message? Who's going to listen to my
Right.
words? Who's going to believe in what I want to say? But I always like to take it back to when you were a little kid. I always
Okay.
like to tell people, I was like, when you were a little kid, you didn't care what clothing you wore. You wanted to wear the Power Ranger shoes, the light up shoes,
Exactly. Yeah.
the
Yep.
shorts and the boots. Like, I don't know,
Hmm.
but that's how
Yep.
you wanted to go to school.
Yes.
Now, you didn't care what you look like because your priority was happiness. It was joy. That was your
Exactly.
priority.
Yep.
Somewhere along the lines, you learned how to be shamed. You learned
Hmm.
how to doubt yourself. And
Yep.
then now you're an adult who, if somebody were to say, hey, wear your cowboy boots, wear your Power Rangers, the first thing that comes to your mind is like, no, because what are people going to think? Well,
Exactly.
you didn't care back then, but why do you care now? The reason we care now is because in our childhood, in our growing up season, we've inherited beliefs that don't serve us. We've inherited the fears of others that love us and want to support us. We
Yep.
inherit their limitations.
Yep.
And I like to think, I always like to say, even the limitations for my mom and my dad grew up in a completely different season than I did. There was no internet, there was no
Right.
TV, so their opportunities were very limited. So I understand them saying, get a job, go to school, get a career. That is the safest way to make money. If you're going to be an entrepreneur, you're wasting time, you're risking it.
Yep.
These beliefs are theirs, but they don't serve me because I've been able to prove that I doubled, tripled my income in
Ex-
teaching, being
yep.
a coach. But I have to realize that they tell me these things not because they don't believe in me, they
Right.
don't believe in themselves.
That very true. Very
That's
true.
it. They don't believe in themselves, but they don't know how to detach from these beliefs. So they've and passed it down to their kids. It is my job. I always like to tell people, it is how you were raised
Yep.
wasn't your fault.
True.
What stays with you after being raised is your fault because
I
you
agree.
have the
Amen.
ability to
You,
to rewire your mind, rewire your subconscious. And I think that's exactly what we're going to do in the workshop. Is just how do we tap into the inventory of the beliefs that aren't serving us,
yep.
and how can we go through them and realize, perhaps I'm carrying this belief, but it isn't even mine. How can I detach from it?
Yep. Yeah. No. And I think almost everybody deals with that upbringing and stuff like that. And the people that I talk to that will be helped with this event, I mean, they're looking for a solution. They're tired of living with that,
Yeah.
and like it is. You're not responsible for what was done to you when you were growing up, but as an adult, you are, and you have the power,
Yeah.
and you have to believe. Like I've said many
Yeah.
times, you just have, if you believe that it's possible, like the word says, I'm
Mm-hmm.
possible, it is possible. So, but that's what we're doing next month, and not that long. So,
Yeah.
yeah, that talked about imposter syndrome and all the other stuff coming with that. That definitely comes with
Yeah.
that too. So,
Yeah.
but
And I think you touched a little bit on the word impact
yep,
and what that
yep,
means. And I think impact is just like, I was just talking to my husband about this yesterday. I said, I think so many of us think impact is like this greater thing.
yep,
But I think impact is something as simple as like giving advice to that one person that needs to hear it.
yes, I
Impact
agree.
is just turning around and working on yourself. Impact is just being in the room and hearing that one thing that's going to change your life.
Yep,
Impact is just about honoring your story and honoring the things that you want to do in your life, because the more you can honor your being, the more you remind the world to honor theirs, and
yes.
the impact is being made.
It is. Yeah, you have the impact, and then the ripple from that impact just keeps on going down out to the universe. So, so that is so cool. So, Crystal, is there anything else you want to touch on today that I haven't touched on about yourself or your business or anything else like that?
No, I think it's just, if you're going through a hard season in your life, just remember that it doesn't last forever.
Right.
It and even though you're in the season where it does feel like it, and you might hear me and you might, yeah, whatever, like it doesn't happen, it doesn't last forever. There's a big thing
True.
from what happened in the past and living in the past.
Yeah.
And I
Yep.
think that my encouragement is just telling you, like, are you currently living in the past? Because if that's so, you get to change the chapter. Like, you get to change the page and write a new story. Is it hard? Yes. Is it going to hurt? Probably. But is it going to be worth it? Absolutely.
Yep.
Because what is meant for you down the road, I've learned this because of the story with me and my husband, but what is for you is going to always find you. And I say
I
this
agree.
because of me and my husband. Like, we literally were 100% done. We were both
Mm-hmm.
living our separate lives, and somehow we came and we found each other. So what is for you will always find you. And
And
when
I
you
agree.
say yes, like the universe does the rest. God, the universe, whoever you think of, but realizing that
Yep.
the more that you want in your life, the reason why you want it is because it's for you. The reason why you
Yep.
have that little gut feeling is because it's for
Mm-hmm.
you. So
Yep.
like lean in, trust it, and go. And even if you don't know the how, don't like take the next step. Even if you don't see the whole staircase, take the
Yep.
step. And as you're stepping, the more steps will appear.
I agree. Because most of the time, especially I found out in the last year, a lot of times you don't know what the next step is. You just
Mm-mm.
have to have the faith to go forward, and it does appear. So the resources and everything else. Crystal, we're getting close to the end of the podcast. You have a question that you have people answer, and I'm going to have you answer that question yourself. So,
Okay.
so
Do you want to say the question? Do you have the question with you?
I do not. So I just
Okay. It was just so the question is basically like if you could give advice from your soul to somebody else's soul, what would it be? And I think the biggest advice it comes down to like don't be afraid to mess up.
yeah.
Don't be afraid to mess up life, mess up your career, mess up everything because what is for you, you can't mess it up. I've learned that multiple
Yeah.
times now. Like your clients are going to find you the more you that you are. So if I were to I don't know, dye my hair and cut it red and
Mm-hmm.
do all these things and say like I don't know, become a completely different personality, the people that are for me will not matter. And
True.
the people that actually it matters to them, they probably don't matter to me.
Yeah. Yeah. I hear you on
So
that.
just
Okay.
really, really honoring your season. Like what is making you happy? Constantly pausing and saying, how can I continue to be more me?
Yep.
And find yourself
Awesome.
unapologetically and be yourself unapologetically because you can't mess it up. You cannot
No,
mess it
that's
up.
true. Amen. Amen.
Yeah.
Crystal, so if people wanted to get a hold of you, how would there
Yeah.
be? I could put this in the show notes, but how can they get a hold of you if they would like to do some stuff with breath work or whatever, your things you do?
So I am very active on Instagram, so you can easily find me on Instagram at Cristal
Okay.
Jacobo, and
Okay.
I would spell it for you guys, but I'm sure Mark's gonna put it down in the show notes.
I
Just
will.
Cristal I
They would definitely
Jacobo.
be.
Yeah, I am also on TikTok under the same name, Cristal Jacobo. I also have a podcast called Soul Radio where I go into what we talked about, probably a little deeper in 100 different topics.
Mm-hmm.
We actually have an annual event as well. We have an annual event every year as well, which tickets come out for that. But probably the easiest way to connect with me is Instagram. My website, it's the same thing, just my name. But I am the most active on Instagram. I even have a text community as well. So I can send Mark the link. But the
Okay.
text community, you just text soul reminders to the number, and re-
Cool.
daily reminders go out every day. Like, hey, this or hey, that. Or in seasons where I'm just really real with that community. Like sometimes life sucks.
It
And
sometimes does.
we have to remind ourselves like is it really a horrible day, was it like 2 minutes of a bad day and I just kept juicing the badness out of it to validate the day. So we
Okay,
have a
that's
texting
cool.
community as well where they get
I,
positive texts or motivational texts and stuff like that.
I did not know that. That is so cool. I
Yeah,
love that. That's very good. Crystal, it's been an awesome pleasure to have you as my guest today, and I I always look forward to talking to you. We always have great conversations. And look forward to doing the event with you next month too. But thank you for taking your time to be on the Handyman for Your Life podcast.
of
And
course.
have a good rest of your day, and we'll talk soon.
Of course. It's been an honor to be here, and anytime I'm always happy to have conversations with you and just chat with you.
Okay, thank you. I
Yeah.
appreciate
All right.
that. So,
You're so welcome. Bye.
bye.